Hello, everyone. Welcome to BiSci through class number 2. Take just a moment to get ready with your notes pages and a writing utensil. And if you please turn off and put away any extraneous electronic devices that you're not using to talk with your mates or to watch this class. Just have those out of the way. That's because the power of presence. There's research published by the University of Chicago that says that even if cell phones are turned off, turned face down, or put away, that their mere presence reduces people's cognitive capacity. And so if you can eliminate as many of those distractions as you can, then you are even better, even further along. So we can't be in two places at once. So as we get started today, we're going to open again with the breathing that we started with on. So take a moment and just lower your eyes and close them if that helps you to be more focused inward. And notice how you're feeling. Notice how you're feeling. Are you anxious? Are you tired? Do you feel well rested? Are you ready? Are you excited? Are you exhausted? Are you drained? Are you confused? Whatever it might be, notice how you're feeling. Whatever it might be. And then expand your lungs with a big, nourishing breath. And naturally exhale. Now take that same sort of breath and consciously work to release any tension you feel as you breathe out. Let the tension just go away with it. Let any anxiety that you feel go away with it. Deep breath, and then releasing. And then do it 2 more times. Concentrating on that nourishment of the in-breath and the release on the out-breath. 1 more time. It's seemingly simple, but it's shown that this simple practice can help most anytime and most anywhere. It's not like I have to strike some bizarre yoga pose in the middle of the hub in order to relax. 3 deep breaths, anywhere, anytime. You're calling in the power of your body. So just remember that. Anytime you need to come to presence, anytime you're feeling anxious, 3 deep breaths. Or more, if you have time, if you have energy, if you have space. So this class gets off to a pretty quick start. So I want to go through some logistics and some of those, and then you'll have a chance in just a moment to ask your TA any questions in your lab sections that you might have that are specific that your TA can help you with. So the first thing is that we respect that some of you need to have your cameras off over the course of this online class. It could be for a multitude of reasons that you need to have your cameras off. Simultaneously, though, we acknowledge that it is more challenging to connect with people if it's just a black screen with a name on it. And so we ask that you consider the value of connection and consider turning on your cameras, especially when your lab group is having conversations, whether you're putting things in the chat box or whether you're actually talking one-on-one with somebody else in your lab group, or whether you're talking with the big group in your lab. So we just ask that you consider the connection that's possible when you can actually see somebody. It creates more engagement with your classmates. The next thing that I want to say is that in 8 or 9 days from now, you'll be turning in your weeks 1 and 2 journals. I would highly encourage that you be working on your week 1 journal now. There are the 3 readings to do, one of which is the syllabus, and then 2 other readings, and then the questions that follow in the week 1 module under reflection assignments. There's been some confusion because I say that this assignment is to be submitted on paper, is what it says in the syllabus in Canvas. And so you'll be working with your TA to have either handwritten or typed entries for this. In the past, it's all been handwritten, but in the online format, we have to find some other ways of doing things. So you'll be working with your TAs to figure out what is going to happen with your group. So I encourage handwriting because our brains process information differently when we write things by hand than when we type. There's a different neural connection between our thoughts and writing them out. And so that's the way I would encourage you to print the pages of your journal, because then also in the future you'll have your journal as a hard copy that you can look back on. It won't be some digital media someplace online. So your TA will explain more about this. The next thing I want to say is that the TAs and I know that there are some cheating websites out there where you can copy journal entries from other people. I've reviewed them. They're mediocre. They aren't worth copying. And so the other part of that is that what's the value in doing that? You would need to expend just as much energy, if not more energy, to find and copy. And the fact that you would not be learning and growing and reflecting, and it just seems like such a waste of time and energy. And so I would encourage you to really write your own journal entries, your own reflection action assignments. Writing down what's true for you is what's going to be most revealing during this semester. And then my final point for right now is that we invite you to do things that you take out of this. So we do this YouTube Zoom experience, and we meet for 100 minutes per week this way, and then you meet for 50 minutes in your labs. And that leaves a whole bunch of minutes to consider and practice what we've offered you. So we ask that you play. That's a huge part of this course, is that you are playing with the ideas and the assignments, and then you're writing about what you experience, or you're sharing the stories of what you experience in your lab. So the practical part of this course is when you take what we're offering and you go out and you play with those ideas. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment as this class goes on. So now, with all of that said, I'd like to give you 5 minutes in your lab, just in your lab group. And so I will mute and stop my video so that you can ask questions of your TAs as you see fit. All right, so I hope that that helped to have some connection and some clarification about things that you're curious about. And now we'll continue on. Today's topic is the gift of curiosity. And we started with this a little bit of on Monday with seeing with new eyes. So we were thinking about seeing ourselves with new eyes, seeing each other with new eyes, seeing Earth with new eyes, seeing college with new eyes. And so this is a new way of thinking, potentially, of seeing yourself with new eyes or seeing these other things with new eyes. What does that really mean to you, and why do you think that we are talking about it here? So take a moment and discuss this in your lab groups, and see, did anyone have an experience with these new ways of thinking and being that you'd like to share a story in your lab group? So take just a moment to chat in the large group and speculate about this. So this is one of those times that you can take something from class and experiment with the idea outside of class, whether it's something specific that you do, or whether it's just a new way of thinking or potentially a new way of thinking as you move through your days. So here's one of those examples. I call it the sidewalk experiment. So imagine this scene as you are coming onto campus one morning. You have an early class, and as you walk up through campus, it looks like this. It's a foggy morning, the leaves are beautiful, and you're just walking up, trying to get to class, when you see somebody coming through the mist, walking towards you, and you're the only two on the sidewalk. You're the only two around. And so you have the choice of what you're going to do when you reach that person on the sidewalk. Are you going to look at your phone real quick and pretend you don't see that person? Are you going to say hello? Are you going to smile? Are you going to look to the right or the left away from the person? And so think about what you might do on this misty, moisty morning on Penn State's campus when you encounter another person on the sidewalk. Feel as though that would seem so out of the ordinary these days to encounter someone, and yet it's delightful. And so, what is it that you would do? You would not be surprised, or at least I speak for myself. I would not be offended. I would not be angry. I would be so pleasantly surprised if someone spoke to me like that on the sidewalk, just appreciating the beautiful day. I would be delighted by that surprise. And so, what that you would do in this moment as you walk toward that person? And it's in these small moments that we create culture. It's in these small moments that we create culture. This experiment unveils our belief about the human other. If you think back to class on Monday, when you signed into your Zoom room, did you see them or did you see us? Those small bits are what creates culture. So we ask ourselves these questions, or you can ask yourself these questions. I can ask myself. So think about the people that you know that are curious. Think about the people you know are curious. They're filled with questions, always asking, always marveling over something. They're alive, they're energized, they're engaged, constantly learning. Maybe this is you. Maybe this is your little sister or your little brother who's just 6. Or maybe it was you when you were 6, but it's not you anymore. We are all born with this kind of curiosity. And the number of questions, well, preschoolers ask dozens of questions per hour. It's the way that they suss out the world. It's the way that they collect information. And yet adults ignore, the statistic is adults ignore 40% of the questions that children ask. And so what does that do? My son Henry, who is now 8, is an incessant questioner. And he has been since he could talk, since he was very little. And so I remember driving, we were driving about 10 miles away to a picnic, and Henry was talking and asking questions the whole time and just expressing this curiosity about so many different things. We were headed to a farm, and the farm was exciting. This is when he was about 3, maybe 4 years old. And I was there with his little brother Luke, who at the time was 2 or so, maybe less. And then I was with another adult. And the other adult with me said, "Henry, if you ask one more question on this ride, I just don't know what I'm going to do." And I was heartbroken and furious with this person. It was somebody that was close to our family. And I was irate because that's how Henry was figuring out the world. Those questions are so vital to how kids perceive the world. And yet I think that I know that I can relate to the idea of thinking that, well, maybe my question is a dumb question, or maybe my question isn't worth asking, or maybe nobody has time to answer my question. And so we stop asking and stop being curious and stop really taking in the world around us in that way. At least I have a feeling that that's what's happening for a lot of us. So how does it shift, and what can we do about it? Let's look at it from another perspective. So the hero's journey. You all know this story. The hero's journey, it's the major theme of many of our cultural works. The Odyssey, Star Wars, Harry Potter, The Lion King, The Lord of the Rings, Spider-Man, Mr. Incredible. You know the story. It's pretty great. I mean, the hero leaves home, traveling from known to unknown, and then he encounters, or she encounters, some sort of place where they have to confront their fears. It's where they commit to the risk. It's where Spider-Man is realizing, oh my gosh, I have to do something about what's going on right now. Suddenly I can shoot webs and I can climb on the sides of buildings. What in the heck am I going to do now? There's a risk, there's fear, and yet they make the choice of surviving the challenge, of seeing themselves, seeing the situation with new eyes. And doing this, it requires asking questions. So the hero gets tested, figures things out, and then gets to return home, offering the gift of expanded consciousness to others. And so this story, the hero's journey, is used over and over and over in our culture. And so now think of someone who do you think of when you think of the word hero? Who in your mind is a hero? Jot down that name of somebody right there on your scrap paper or in your journal. Take a moment and share some of those. And TAs, if you'll drop some of those into our chat so that I can get an idea of what people are thinking about out there, people in their lives that are heroes. There are lots of them. Some people are saying relatives, moms and grandmas and grandpas. Some people are saying somebody in history, politics, religious leaders. There are lots of heroes out there. His dad, that's pretty darn sweet. And so, no matter who it is that you're thinking of that's a hero, um, what do those people have in common? Mom and dad and siblings, Muhammad Ali, sister, foster parents, delivery people during the pandemic, for sure, firefighters on 9/11, Superman, surgeons, moms and aunts, parents, healthcare workers. These days, man, that's a whole hero thing. My Nana, that's so sweet. So, no matter who that person is, think about some of their characteristics. These people have things in common. Greta Thunberg, she's a hero. They're people that have looked around and noticed that things weren't quite right. Someone who puts their fears behind them to help others. Firefighters, father, these are still coming in. They're so beautiful. My roommate is my hero. They noticed that things weren't quite right and made a decision to ignore the story that they've been given. That story might have been that they needed to look away, to look down, to go small. But instead, the hero is the one who puts themselves before others. They're the ones that questions. They step up. They're selfless. They have a record of facing challenges and not taking shortcuts. They step up. They step forward. They jump in. The hero is the one that discovers himself or herself and the purpose of their life. They're inspiring. They are courageous. They're brave. They focus on the collective rather than the individual. So as we think back to the sidewalk experiment, even in that moment, what is the path of the hero? What is the way to move forward in that situation? People that are willing to sacrifice and take risks, and that leads right into this dear woman. She says, to bring about change, you must not be afraid of the first step. We will fail when we try. This is Rosa Parks. You have heard the story of this amazing lady. She was one to believe that other people's well-being means more than her own. She was the one with the pivotal role in the Montgomery bus boycott. The Congress called her the First Lady of Civil Rights and the Mother of the Freedom Movement. On December 1st, 1955, she refused to obey the bus driver's order to give up her seat in the colored section to a white passenger after the whites-only section was filled. Her quote is that people always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired. She had just gotten off a really long shift of work, and I'm sure she was physically tired. But that isn't true. I was not tired physically, or no more tired than I usually was at the end of a working day. I was not old, although some people have an image of me as being old then. I was 42, but the only tired I was tired of giving in. Another way of saying this is that she was bold enough to be curious about what would happen if she changed the story. What was her meaning and culture? What is my meaning and culture? It all begins with questions. So research reveals that there's a strong link between curiosity and the feelings of well-being. People who are curious orient their lives toward discovery and growth, and they're predisposed to engage in, rather than avoid, novel activities. Curious people tend to be more self-aware and don't shy away from the tough questions of who am I and where do I want to go in life. And so how does this all tie in to what we were starting on Monday? This is all about the scientific method. This hero's journey is all about figuring things out, making observations and questioning, creating a hypothesis and experimenting. And that's what we're doing. We're doing the scientific method. We're trying to figure things out, and questioning is a key piece in this. So for example, here's this guy. I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Thompson, businessman described as America's greatest inventor, the phonograph, the motion picture camera, the light bulb, founder of General Electric. It took thousands of iterations before the electric light was in a practical and usable form. Think of that, thousands of questions, thousands of iterations, trying to figure it out, rotations through the scientific method. This was not just his job, this was his life. When I was in college even, I only thought that the scientific method was for how fruit flies act in a jar or when liquids turn to solids. I had no idea that I was using it all the time to figure out life. Curiosity is the catalyst for the scientific method and the hero's journey. I just had no idea until I started diving in. So let me show you a little video of this astonishing young woman. She's now age 17. The video that you'll see is when she was 16. She is asking questions and pushing for change, and she is on the hero's journey. So check out this video.
I see myself as one out of millions in this movement. People look up to me in some way, I guess. That, of course, puts me in a different position. People listen to what I have to say. I want you to unite behind the science.
Welcome, Greta Thunberg.
Thank you. Changing the world.
The world is waking up.
Okay, we're off. Yeah, like that.
But I'm not a leader or the face of the climate movement. I'm just one of many faces. We can't just continue living as if there was no tomorrow. Because there is a tomorrow.
There is something about Greta Thunberg that seems to trigger some people.
It was all a little melodramatic.
Honey, go back to school. Calm down. It's going to be okay.
Did President Trump just mock a 16-year-old Swedish climate activist?
All we young activists are doing is telling people to listen to and unite behind the science. Our leaders need to start acting accordingly. We get all this hate that shows we are actually making a difference and they see us as a threat. We often talk about these negative tipping points, things that we can't change. There could be also positive tipping points, like when people decide they have had enough.
To lead what could be the biggest day of protest yet.
Strikes she's inspired in the US and across the world.
People are striking today in over 150 countries. The tipping point we are waiting for right now is that people will realize what power we actually have the moment the one striker became two strikers. That was a big step. The biggest victory is that the general awareness has been increasing. I am not sailing mainly because I want to lower my own carbon footprint. If one person stops flying, then that sends a signal we are in a crisis. I think we need to spread that awareness now. It is hard to be different sometimes. I have Asperger's, I'm on the autism spectrum, so I don't really care about social codes in that way. Many people see it as a weakness or a disease, but it's not. I have been very limited by my diagnosis in the past, but now I don't suffer from it anymore. I use it in a way that can take advantage of. I think the hope right now is the people.
We need to work together. In order to change everything, we need everyone.
I'd like to tell my grandchildren that we did everything we could.
We are the ones who are going to bring change.
And we did it for them, for the generations to come.
Pretty stunning young woman on the hero's journey, asking questions using the scientific method. If there's any time in my lifetime, it's now to question everything. Change brings the questions, and questions bring more change. Until this class, until I started being involved in BiSci 3, I didn't like the phrase question everything. It seemed to doubt people or to be disrespectful or subversive. That was my perception of this phrase, question everything. Through this class, I'm working on unlearning that. I'm relearning the value of this message. I'm unlearning my old story. In a few days, as an action assignment, you will be asked to write 75 questions that pertain to you personally. It can be tough to dig down and get to the nitty-gritty. Your TAs will offer you coaching with assignment during lab this week. So you might consider that we've just come off summer break, some of us, and what's come up for you in that time? Sure, you did stuff over break, but what did you think about? What did you question? And this summer of all summers has been an opportunity for taking time to question everything. What new stuff are you wrestling with right now? What doesn't feel right? Or what feels awesome? What are you discovering in this time? This is the perfect time to be discovering. Why don't you take a moment and just talk with your neighbor, talk with your lab group. TAs, you may want to put people in pairs or smaller groups to discuss what's coming up for you right now. What are you really wrestling with? What are you questioning? What are you finding to be awesome? I'll give you a couple minutes for this. TAs, if you have stuff to put in the group me, I would love that. Thank you. questions that are coming in through my chat with the TAs are absolutely amazing. Well, somebody said there's a certain level of anxiety about questioning everything, and for sure, there can be anxiety about questioning things. People that are questioning right now, some of the anxious questions that I see that are coming across the chat, media's role as truth or as a weapon. Am I really satisfied? That question can bring some anxiety, because what if you discover that you're not satisfied with where you are, your major, your classes? Are you doing what's really important? Questioning plans, questioning human interaction and the value of that, questioning how sports come to unify us. What will we do without them? The idea of being home versus at school and which is better, there's those kind of questions. Is the road I'm on the right one? How comfortable with myself? When will this pandemic be over? You all have beautiful questions. Was coming to campus the right question, or the right thing to do? Excuse me. Why is there so much anger in the world, and why aren't people nice? And so these questions go on, and they are what informs us, that what helps us to suss out situations, what helps us to explore. So think about it in this way, or here's one way to think about it. The what informs and the why transforms. You might want to write that down. The what questions inform and the why questions transform. So as you imagine this scenario, you meet up with an acquaintance as you walk through the hub, and this is the first time you've seen this person since last semester or since last February. And what do you ask? So you start thinking about what questions, what have you been doing? That will inform you about what they have been doing, obviously. What happens if you say, why have you been choosing that? Why have you been choosing to spend your time that way? It can come across as a judgmental question, but that's not the intention, and you can explain that. Why have you chosen to spend your time that way? Is a huge question, because we all have 24 hours every day, and how we choose to spend it is a really powerful thing. It says a lot about what's important to us. And so, what questions inform and why transform? So this is something that you can practice with, asking yourself and asking other people. It might lead to some really great conversations. A lot of you were asking about how to meet people in the midst of this. And maybe it's the people that you already know, that maybe you can meet them on a different level by asking different questions or switching the conversations. So how can you feel more curious? And how will that curiosity affect you? How will it affect your semester? How will it affect what you choose to take in during BiSci 3? Those are all things to think about. Nothing shapes our lives so much as the questions we ask, the questions we refuse to ask, or the questions that we never dream of asking. So here's your takeaway, thinking about questions, thinking about how we think, making the choices that we do. Why do we do the things we do? Diving in deeper. So here it is, the sidewalk experiment. See what happens. You have 5 days until we hang out again in this big group. You have a day or two until your lab. Experiment with this on a sidewalk, out of your apartment, wherever it is. I'll be asking about this on Monday, and so see what happens if you have an encounter with somebody on the sidewalk. See what happens when you start asking yourself some questions. I hope that you have a lovely day, and I hope that your labs are great this week. I look forward to hearing about them from your TAs, and I look forward to seeing you back here on Monday. Thanks so much for your